4 in 10 new babies had at least one foreign-born parent last year. Diversity is not our greatest strength, and we do have an Indigenous British culture that is worth protecting. But here we are. 40.4% of births in Britain were to families with at least one parent not from the UK in 2024. In 5 local authority areas, that figure rises to 80% of births. Well, where are they? Well, to put it this way, in London, all but 2 boroughs had a majority of births from households with at least one foreign parent. So our capital city is basically not British anymore, is it? But this is right across the country. The number of foreign-born parents giving birth in Leicester has risen by 11% in just 8 years. Manchester, 10% up. Wolverhampton, up by 19%. So, where are they coming from? Well, mostly it's India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Romania and Bangladesh. Somalis also rank amongst the nationality with the highest birth rate. Also, let's have a little think, shall we, about who's coming across the channel. Well, it's loads of people from Afghanistan and Sudan. Well, the average number of children in Afghanistan is about 5.3, and in Sudan it's 4.3, apparently. So the British birth rate, meanwhile, is plummeting. It's fallen by a quarter in 15 years. In contrast, births to Indian mothers have risen by 73%, West Africans by 37%, the Poles and Romanians, they're up 32.6%. But I know what many of you will be thinking now. How on earth do they afford it? Well, do you know what else is really interesting? So families from the Bangladeshi and black ethnic groups are more likely to receive income-related benefits, according to statistics. The combined Pakistani and Bangladeshi ethnic group had the highest rate of economic activity in Britain, apparently. We have more than 1 million foreigners claiming benefits, and they, by the way, are just the ones who are here legally. So it does beg the question, doesn't it? Who is paying for all of these children? Are white British people less inclined to have children because they worry that they might not be able to afford them, whereas people from other ethnic groups just crack on? And why can't white Brits afford to have them? Well, maybe it could be because they're paying loads of money in tax to subsidise foreign people's babies. I mean, it's little wonder that a shocking report earlier this year suggested that white British people will become a minority in the UK population within the next 40 years. By 2100, that same report predicts 6 in 10 people in the UK will either not have been born in the UK or will have at least one immigrant parent. Now, Britain is currently being treated like a plot of land where everyone from all over the world gets to come and live and have kids. And British people, I feel, are being expected to pay for that. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. We have the Director of the Public Services, Mark Littlewood. We have landlord and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. So, Mark, you're a numbers guy. You're a stats man. What do you make of some of these figures and potentially what it means for Britain going forward?
Yeah, it's pretty worrying, Patrick. And you highlighted one thing there which I think is important, high tax rates. But rather than, I think, looking at non-Brits having kids, we've got to ask why Brits are having so few. That's really the thing that's dropped off. You're right, there are increases in certain areas and amongst certain nationalities, but it's really that the indigenous native population have stopped having children. Why might this be so? Well, partly I agree with you, it's high taxes. There's also ludicrous property costs. I mean, we haven't dealt with the housing crisis. So if you're in your 20s and you're trying to get on the property ladder, want a sort of home that could suit a family, good luck. You're going to have to be extremely rich. We have a tax system that penalises single-earner households. So you're much better off under our tax system to have 2 people, mum and dad, both working on 50 grand a year than one person working on 100 grand a year. So again, family formation and one of the parents staying at home disincentivised. I think we've got to turn all of that around. If, it won't be true of all of these families, of course, but if you are basically content or have accepted that you're going to be spending your life on welfare, those incentives don't matter so much.
Exactly.
If you are determined that you want to work, put a roof over your head, live in private accommodation, not state accommodation, everything is against you. So the way to tackle this problem, I think, is to look at it down the other end of the telescope, have many more incentives, or at least not disincentives, for white British people to have kids. And at the moment, everything runs against them.
OK, yeah, fine. And again, as, by the way, some of those stats do point out, so, for example, Polish and Romanian migrants into Britain are also having more children. Yeah, this isn't just about before people jump on the bandwagon. This isn't just about a colour thing or race thing or anything like that. One would imagine that most of the people coming from Romania and from Poland are probably white, right? So it's not just about that. But I think some of the other ones here are quite interesting. You see India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh in there. You also see the fact that Somalian birth rates tend to be a lot higher, as indeed do the Sudanese. And I just wonder whether or not there is a potential for cultural issues.
There's a massive problem now. My family are from Bethnal Green. My mum was born there, my dad was born there. It's an area I used to love going as a kid. You go to Bethnal Green on market day, it looks like something out of Bangladesh or out of Asia. And I'm not having a go, but how is that a positive thing for Britain? At the end of the day, I'm all for an inclusive country. I've got black friends, brown friends, foreign friends. It doesn't matter. But it's almost like the whole country is being wiped out by people coming here and just staying here. 1 in 4 sexual assaults is by a foreign-born man. How is that a good thing? We are importing people from cultures that act differently to us and treat women like, you know, third-class citizens.
OK.
So it's not just how it looks. We're importing danger.
What would you make of this then Nina? Do you think that there is any reason to be concerned when we look at the birth rates and the potential cultural consequences of this?
No, not at all. And there are several aspects that you have to look at. It's not just the fact that different cultures and different religions promote childbirth and bigger families, but you have to look at what women want. Women on the whole in the West are feeling less inclined to have children. They don't want to give up their way of life. It's taken decades for them to achieve some kind of parity, to have their own money and to be independent and free. And if you look at Japan, for instance, the birth rate is there very low.
Problems.
So, you know, you can't blame that on migration. Also, I sincerely object to this business of foreigners. I got very cross last time I discussed this because
But they are foreigners, Nina.
Therefore, I am a foreigner because my father was Polish, so therefore I'm a foreigner.
Was you born here?
Yes, I was.
You're not a foreigner then, are you?
But this report, which I find repugnant, because here's another way we can all fear foreigners and make people
born
hate
to a
them.
foreign parent.
No, I was born to a foreign parent.
That's just a statistic, then, isn't it? I mean,
yes, but the way it's written and the way it's portrayed, it's saying you may say it's not racist, but the whole thing is about white and the white British.
Okay.
Look, I love Britain. I love the British culture. But what is it about the British culture that is going to... Is it roast beef on a Sunday? What is it?
There's a whole range of things about British culture, isn't there? And it was interesting to hear Adam's anecdote about Bethnal Green. Very often, those who are relaxed about these sort of things, wholly relaxed, say, well, it's great, the UK's a melting pot. But I don't think it is. I think the UK is becoming a silo system, actually. It's not lots of people of different nationalities mixing in. It's actually that there are completely different cultural areas in different parts of the country. And that is not a recipe for social harmony and peace.
I don't like the ghettoisation.
Failed.
They're not assimilating.
Yeah, there's not assimilation. Integration has largely failed, tragically. And Nina, to your point, look, of course, nobody is suggesting that you put a gun to women's heads and suggest that they've got... Well, I don't think anybody is putting a gun to women's heads.
No, but I mean,
the problems are, as I was saying right at the start of the show, all of the problems are massive disincentives. Childcare in the UK is the most expensive in Europe and the most regulated.
If you have to pay for it.
Yeah, if you have to pay for it.
If
you have to pay for it.
But in countries
so
where...
all of these things, if you're just, imagine you're just a typical young British couple, probably middle class, trying to build a career, huge incentives not to have kids. Huge incentives.
I
and we've
agree.
got to change
Childcare
that.
has to be sorted out. But the thing is, in France, they're trying to... It's not just here. In France, they're trying to incentivise young people to have... They're giving them free fertility tests between the age of 16 and 24. But I wanted to ask Adam a question. Two things. One, you say they won't assimilate. The problem being that you don't want them to assimilate. You don't want them here. You sat here on this sofa and said, I don't want
illegal immigrants here. Please don't try and portray me as racist, Nina. One second, Nina.
I'm not saying he's racist. We were talking about people assimilating, and you just said,
well, let's let him come back to that.
don't want...
Well, let's let
I
him come
didn't
back
say
to
that. Look, I didn't say that there. No, Nina, please stop making things up.
I'm not making things up.
Right,
I never lie.
in a previous show many months ago, Nina tried to tell me that some of these people coming across the migrant on the migrant boats, some could be doctors that treat my family, future, cancer cases or things like that. It's this naivety and this sort of rhetoric from people like Nina and Gary Lineker that think that all these people coming across are great people. They're not. Hold on, Nina, you said that. There is a naivety. You do not know what some of the monsters that are coming across on these dinghies are.
For heaven's sake. And I also wanted to ask you a question. You said that you'd love to live in Spain.
Yeah.
OK. Where do you want to live in Spain?
Mallorca.
OK. And when you go there, will it be a predominantly British section of Spain or Spaniards?
Spanish, actually.
OK.
And I would go there, I would try and learn the language, I would buy a property, pay taxes, and I would have input to that country.
You wouldn't be able to learn the language.
No, I probably wouldn't be able to, but I would try, and I would input with my property tax.
What is wrong with people coming here?
Well, there's a big difference, Nina. There's a big difference.
What is the difference?
Because if you go to Spain, you are not indulged if you wish to speak in English. When I was last in Spain and had to visit a doctor, I had to pay for a translator. It wasn't provided by the Spanish government. It wasn't paid for by the Spanish taxpayer. It was paid for by me.
Yes, but I bet
and I think we should do the same in the UK.
That's neither here nor there.
I just want to drag us back to these tasks. We're pressed for time. So, Mark, put this to you. Is it fair to at least pose the question about whether or not British people, it's not just white Brits, but British people who are here in Britain now are not having children because their tax burden is so high, because they're subsidising non-British people or recent arrivals so that they can have as many kids as they want?
That's a huge jump.
It's a very interesting hypothesis, right? We know that British people are having many fewer kids, and we know there are a whole range of reasons that might explain that. I'm being taxed too heavily, so I couldn't properly afford it. The cost of housing, as I've mentioned, is so high, we can't actually have a bedroom for the kids. It's just beyond our reach. So it seems to me a perfectly reasonable hypothesis that there are vast numbers of disincentives to ordinary white British people, be that tax, be that housing costs, be that childcare costs through the roof, especially those who are working and in the private sector, massive disincentives. It is reasonable, therefore, to conclude that those disincentives in our tax and benefits system are at least a fairly substantial part of these statistics.
And also, look, I've got 3 kids, but if I didn't have kids now, I wouldn't bring them into this world because I don't know what this country's going to look like in a few years. We've got a crime epidemic, and the shape of this country, the way it's going, is frightening. So many people, young people, will be scared to bring kids into this world.
Final word, Nina.
You cannot go scaremongering. That you have to accept that the world is changing, that the world is moving, that people move to different countries. They assimilate, or not to various degrees. But it depends also on the welcome they get. And
well, we have been
the welcome here is pretty generous.
You cannot go through life as a kind of little Englander saying, I'm putting the barricades up and nobody's coming in.
Are countries like Nigeria racist for not wanting a load of white people to move there, Nina?
I have no idea about Nigeria.
We are inclusive and we are fair and we are welcoming.
Good luck, pal.
Yeah,
well, why do they come here then?
OK. All right, well, look, hey, there we go. The stats are out there. The facts are out there. People can draw their own conclusions about what that means and whether or not they like the direction of travel in this country. So there we go.